Everyone, good morning, welcome back. I am plugging my little car in. I've got to be honest, I do like my little electric van. When I got it, I was really against it for the first week. I just hated it. But I've really got the hang of it now, and I must say, I really quite like it. Your request is being processed. Of course, it is a question of finding a charging pod which actually works. That is an issue. System unavailable. Please try again or go to the next charging pod. I was saying that I'm starting to quite like this. This is an issue, because this is all it's coming up saying. Your request is being processed, and then it just locks you out. It says you can't charge. Right, I'll move to that one over there. EV charging, no flaws in this, is there? Fucking meow. Right, let's try this pod. It's a bit of trial and error with this, but right. Tap the screen start, tap your card. I'm trying to find a pod because we're working in Fulham today, and a parking ticket is 65 quid here. It's really expensive. So it's cheaper to just stay, it's cheaper to hog a charging pod all day than it is to actually get a ticket. Right, it would appear the charging pods are broken, and then no sooner had I found that out, my batteries ran out of my mic. So we've replaced them and we're good to go. So in today's video, what we've got to do, you'll remember this place, the needle cesspit of doom and despair that we were working in. We were putting the lights up here that I buggered up one of the holes, which is why we use the larger down lights. But these undercupboard lights, which you saw us fitting, I decided to put the switch under here just because I wasn't sure what the landlord wanted. The landlord came in, he's made a decision, he'd actually like the switch here rather than under there. So we've got to drag an extra cable in for that, but this is just a hollow wall, so we should be able to drag a new cable up without too much bother. We have a pair of fans. I don't even want to go in that room. That is just the room of doom, despair, and shit. So I do have to do some work in there, but I'm going to leave that for later on this afternoon. A couple of these Svara fans. These bathrooms are being refitted because they're quite old and manky, so that I'll replace it, but I'm guessing Peter, the carpenter, plasterer, is going to skim that. There's nothing to be done in that room. This here is okay. The room of doom and despair, that can wait. And then up here, I've got to change that pendant right above the camera guy, but I have no idea how to change it because it's right on the staircase. I just don't know, so I'm going to have to, don't know. This bathroom is also being refitted. They're ripping it all out, but it does need a new fan, so that's going to go in there, which I'll do later on. And then in this sort of mold-riddled room, we've got to put a new light up here. I think he just wants like a track spotty bar sort of thing. Beyond that, that's about it. That's what we've got to do. And the cooker downstairs, that also reminds me. There's a new cooker going in, swanky, sort of all singing, all dancing thing, but he needs a fuse spur for it. I'm guessing to operate the gas ignition on it or something, I don't know. I'll cross that bridge later on this afternoon, so that's got to be done. So let me get set up and I will come back to you in a second. Have to say, there is nothing quite like lifting carpet, especially carpet that hasn't been cleaned. That really is there's a smell to it, and like moving beds and like old drawers and stuff which have all got pubic hairs in them. There's nothing quite like it, especially on a Monday morning, you know, at 8 a.m, just to make you realise you're just a minion. You're just a cog in a machine. It's quite special. You should try it sometime. It's wet as well. Cameraman got a mouthful of pubes there. First year apprentices, you've got all this to come and you don't even realise it. If you think it's changing sockets above the kitchen worktop, let me be the first person to tell you you're very much mistaken. We did our first little foray into highways work the other day. That's why I'm so unmotivated here, because I've seen the light, I've seen what is possible. Yeah, me and the camera guy just up in the bucket, doing what we had to do, just chilling, you know, all our cones out and everything looking cool. It's coming soon, actually. There will be plenty of content coming soon about that. Right, this is a new feed that I'm running in, basically to extend this switch from here to the other side of the room over there next to us. So I've got to cut another switch in next to that switch. But it did just occur to me, there were one or two people saying that they're not seeing any house route wires. Why aren't we doing them? We've not done one in ages. It's a twofold reason. The first reason is price. We can't compete we just can't compete on price with house route wires because there are so many companies out there doing it so cheaply that, I mean, you can get a quote for a house route wire from anywhere like $2,500. And that's like in central London. I mean, it's just really messed up rates. And the problem is, our cheapest quote, it doesn't matter what house rewire it is, every rewire is they're always about £7,000 minimum. That's the opening value of a house rewire. I know there'll be people here that will say, oh, it's ridiculously expensive, but it's not. When you actually add up the costs of insurance, taxes, and all the stuff that's got to go with it, you can't do it cheaper. It's just, there's no profit in it, especially if it's like a, 3-bedroom house. There's just no money in it. So that's the first reason. And the second one is just, I was about to say because people haggle and moan, but that's actually the first reason. So price is the main reason. But that said, we have got, there's actually, funny enough, we haven't done one for ages. We've got 2 coming up that for some reason they took our quotes. So we've got one coming up. We've got 2. I can't remember whereabouts in the world they are, but I know there's 2 of them coming up, and we're actually starting it next week. So I've got the camera guy booked to a week. So that will be coming up in a couple of weeks. In fact, that's an interesting one because it's all trunking. He wanted to bring the price down a bit. So I said, well, look, we can either do it in trunking, we do the whole lot in trunking, and we do it all in surface. So he ended up taking that option. So it'll be interesting to see. I've actually never done a rewire all in trunking. So that's coming out the week after next, 2 weeks from now. So it'll be interesting to see actually how that turns out. I'm not sure whether it's going to be any quicker or not because trunking actually might be more of a faff. We'll see. But that'll become about a week after next it should be. Right, this is an interesting question. Well, it is for me an interesting question. Because there's so many times where I've come across this scenario and there's just no way around. There is a way around it. It's called grid switches. Like here, I've got a double dimmer. So one dimmer does the lights in the living room, right? And the other dimmer does these lights here. But the customer wants to be able to switch these cupboard lights on and off. Now, we can't dim those. So normally what you would do is just put a 4-gang, you would just put a double back box in and you'd have a 3-gang dimmer. But they have to be on a switch. So the only way they can get around that is you either put like an MK grid or lap an MK, something like that, and you have a grid and you put 2 dimmers and a switch. But wouldn't it be nice, like this customer who can't put MK in here, it's got to be Schneider. He wants all Schneider accessories everywhere. Now Schneider don't do that. I've been in loads of occasions I've tried it where you want to have 2 dimmers and a light switch. So why can't they just make a 4-gang plate and just have 2 dimmers and a single light switch? There must be so many times where contractors have been in that position. Because sometimes you don't want to fit grid. Because some people don't like it. Some people like the one plate look that you don't like. Some people don't like it. Why can't we have that? Can manufacturers please do that? Just have like a double dimmer and a single switch next to it. There are so many occasions where I think that would be handy. So yeah, leave your thoughts below. Maybe grid is the only way forwards, but it would just be nice. Yeah, you get what I'm saying. Lath and plaster is by a mile the most. It's such horrible stuff to work with. Like you can't go right up to the edge because then it'll all break away. You cut it, it all comes out underneath. It's just horrid. But once I've finished and the plumbing's finished, there's a decorator coming in, so it's not too bad. But yeah, working with lath and plaster is just, I try to avoid it where I can. It's so horrible to work with. So what I've ended up doing, I've made an executive decision here and I'm just going to extend it and I'm just going to have to put like an MK grid switch in. I can't put a switch next to it because the lath and plaster just doesn't work like that. You have to put the switch right over here. If I put it above, I think it's just going to look butt ugly. It's just going to look weird. So in the end, I'm just going to put an MK grid there, and the customer's just going to have to accept it. There's just nothing I can do about it. The MK grid looks fine. It's just he wanted the same finish everywhere, but in this one room, he's just going to have to accept it's a fait accompli. This is what domestic is all about, For anyone who thinks like I'm making it up, I'm not. Like, can you imagine the chain of events that went into this radiator? Like, somebody fitted it, and then someone came behind and put this wall there, and at no point did anyone think, hang on, Brian, this rad's in the way. Ah, fuck it, just board over it. That is the level of, this is why we're getting out of it, because it's just, this is... Fuck it, Brian, just board over it. It'll be all right. By the time we're gone, no one will fucking know. Just put a sofa there, no one will see. You just can't make it up, Okay, so, update. There was a socket behind the bed here, behind this piece of art. And this is what I'm saying about EICRs. Like, sometimes they're just not worth the paper they're written on, And this is an example here. We did the EICR here. But what we didn't see is that when you pull the carpet up, this socket was powered. They basically just ran it next to the tack fast on the edge of so it just runs all the way around the room underneath the carpet. Now, of course, you can't pick that up on an EICR, but it's quite dangerous when you do an EICR and then you've got to do the remedials. When you start picking away at the surface and more stuff just comes to light. This actually doesn't matter because we're going to take this out, because we've got to move the socket here because it's a dumb location here. So what we've had to do, this bit of skirting we've had to cut because somebody decided to put this wall in geniusly. They've boarded straight over these floorboards. So what we had to do is we've had to cut the skirting, take it off. I've cut a little notch here so we can get the cable in, up behind, and then I'll cut the socket in there, somewhere there, round about now. Right, ladies and gentlemen, that socket is gone. I think we spoke about this in previous content. I put a blank plate over this one because they used to mount them so low down, you just couldn't plug anything into them. Or maybe in the old days, you used to plug in forwards and the lead came out forwards, but obviously now leads come out downwards, so you can't use these. So I blanked it off because this is where the bed's going to go anyway. And I've put this one here. I had to cut the skirting with a multi-tool, as you saw in the video. But this wall has got to cut this wall. No, this wall isn't coming out. The radiator is coming out. So they're going to have to do some damage here to get this radiator out, apparently. So I'm not too worried about damaging this skirting. But I've just pushed it back into place for a second and taken this back box off. But that did make me wonder. This back box is MB, which I believe used to be called Marbo. You know Marbo? It was similar to Volex. I believe Marbo and Volex shared designs and stuff, because if you buy used to buy the old Volex fuse boards in the 16th edition when they were plastic split load ones, and if you bought a Marbo one, they were the same, but they just interchanged their brands on the boards. Kind of like a Renault Traffic and a Vauxhall Vivaro, similar sort of thing. But a Marbo's still going. I don't even know if they're still... Back when I was first qualified, that was what I used to fix. I was just doing it on a budget like a cheap ass. But I don't even know if they're still going. Put it below. And same as Volex. I don't think they're going anymore. I think maybe they've gone under or something. But put it below if you know. Right, I'm just terminating this T&E, that's the word I was looking for, to go over to that switch. So there won't be a switch here now. It'll just be a blank plate. But that does remind me, actually, there is a new opening for an administrative assistant to give Sarah and Vanita a hand in the office. So I haven't really thought through 100% what this will be, but if there's anybody local, because we're based down in Wembley next to Hanger Lane Tube Station, so that's where our office is based. But if you've got admin experience and you've got QuickBooks experience, and I need somebody with QuickBooks and VAT experience. If you've got those, then yeah, send us an email, reach out to us. Leave the email address here. Send us an email, reach out to us, and just give Sarah a ring in the office, have a chat with her. But we do need somebody to do VAT, QuickBooks. Even if you haven't got the experience, if you're a quick learner, even that would do. I'm just looking for somebody with the right attitude. So it's basically just to join Sarah V and all of us back in the unit, just to give us a hand to get the back end side of things sorted. So yeah, apply to that email address there, and yeah, best of luck. Okay, so basically, what I had to get a bit of a wiggle on off cam because I need to get a move on. There's a cooker hood going. Again, I don't know, the landlord doesn't know 100% yet. There's going to be a hood apparently going here. This is obviously the chimney breast, I can't do anything with that. So what I've done, I've just put a fan isolator inside the cupboard here, and then depending on where he wants, because it might be a hood that's bolted on the front here, it might go under here, I don't know. So I've left an isolator here, just a 3 amp fan isolator, and then just bit of trunking there through, and then I can just, depending on where he wants it, I can just get an SDS drill and come out this side. But I don't know. So I've left it there and the capability's there if he wants it. But I've got a feeling he probably won't have one, but the capability's there if he wants one. Right, next job. I've got to change the RCD and the fuse board. I shall see you down there. Right, this is a fuse board that's, in fact James did it. The original board was mounted here. You can see where the old one was. But we just couldn't fit, there's just a mathematical issue here, we just couldn't fit the board in there. So all the cables were coming up this steel trunking. So we just cut the trunking down, earthed it, and then just put the board up there. But it's actually the first time we ever fitted, there's a brand called Chint, and it's the first time we've ever fitted it. I've never ever bought it before, and it's a brand that Screwfix sell. It's okay, but it is a budget brand. I mean, there's no getting away from it. But I mean, I'll give you an example. I had to buy a second brand new board to swap out the broken parts in this one. I got it, and the RCD in it was damaged, literally from the shop. So I'm just going to have to swap the RCDs over and take this one back because you can't buy the RCD separately. Let me pull the RCD out of this one and I'll show you what's wrong with that board.
A few inches later.
So I'll just show you quickly before I rob this one a bit to put in that one. I mean, you shouldn't have to do that, but anyway. One thing I do, I mean, it is a budget board. I mean, you can buy this, I think, for it's like 60 quid. I mean, it's really cheap, dual RCD, and it's still compliant. It's a budget board. I like the insulated covers. I thought that was quite a neat design. They use solid bars rather than, you know, the flexi leads which you normally get in dual RCD configurations. And sometimes I find those flexi leads they get in the way, and especially if you dress a board neatly and then you go to put the flexi leads back in afterwards, it just looks horrible and there's no way of getting around it. This, I mean, I thought that was quite neat, the way they use solid bars. I think that was quite nice. But that was the only thing I liked about it, to be honest. But it is, again, it's a budget board. I sort of lose patience when people say, oh, I only ever fit, you know, that, you know. This board, again, it boils down to that thing of budget. Everyone has budgets and you've got to try and work with people's budgets with, you know, this is what they need. This is what we can offer. So, okay, to do that, we have to use these type of parts and you have to try to meet people halfway. But I mean, once they're fitted, they're compliant. It's just, they're not as nice to fit as other brands, should we say. So what happened here, when the cover of the fuse board went on, I guess in the factory or something, or it's probably during delivery, the end of this RCD's been damaged. I'll show you when I take it out because you can't see it very well there. So I've got to swap it out for this one here. So yeah, that's the one I've just taken out, that fuse board. I'll put it back in this one so I can take this one back. So that's what's happened. Now, I don't know, maybe that happened in transit, but this is really tough plastic. This stuff doesn't, you know, you can drop an RCBO, or, you know, you could drop a breaker from a height and it just bounces back. The plastic is really strong. I think what's happened, this cover's been, I don't know, that's pressed against the cover and it's damaged it. But yeah, quality didn't shine through on this particular one, I'm afraid. Not to say they were a bad brand, because I don't know. It actually was all right to fit. There's just nicer ones out there to fit. I just picked up the box just to put it all back together so I can take it back to Screwfix tonight. And I never saw this, the collection note. I've just seen it now. Someone left that. I guess it's somebody who works in Screwfix. So I don't know who you are, but thank you. I do appreciate it, even if it doesn't come across all the time. I do appreciate it. Right, RCD's done. Next job is this Ring doorbell. So for anyone who hasn't fitted these, they're a doddle. You can get them with battery packs. So you can have like a rechargeable battery pack that you pull out from underneath and you replace it when it's flat. And they last like 4 or 5 weeks. They last quite a long time. So if you have two, every 4 years, just keep swapping battery packs over. But here we've got a power supply. So they had an old video doorbell here. So I've just taken that one off. And you've literally just got 2 wires. And on the back of the Ring doorbell, it's literally 2 screws. And it doesn't matter which way you connect it. They're non-polarized. You can connect it whichever way. And they're a doddle. You just connect those up, switch it on, and you just hook it up to your Wi-Fi, and that's it. It's really, really simple. Some people ask whether they're better than Nest. So like some people say that Nest is better or Ring's better. I don't think there's a lot in it, to be honest. They're both really good and they've both got pros and cons. So it's just down to your own personal preference. But Ring I do like, it is good. I'm going to leave this job now because I've run out of materials. The nearest cities is down in Fulham Broadway and there's no point in me going down there at this time of day. So I'm going to run back over to Charity, you know, the charity that you've seen me working and fitting these LED lights. I'm going to go back over there because we've got a load of Cat6, there's a load of data cabling which has to be moved to a server. So give me probably an hour in traffic and I'll see you over there.
Day 2.
Okay, now it is the next day. We are about to go back to that charity, that ground floor open office space. We're going to go there and I've got a load of Cat6 cable in there that I've got to terminate. But I've just popped in here. This is a job we did last week actually. It was last Friday, today's Tuesday. And basically what we've got is you've got a 3-phase isolator, 32 amp isolator, 32 amp commando socket, and what I thought, plugs in the van. But basically what's happened is they've got a forklift, that one just there, and this is the charging pod for that forklift. The problem is when it turned up, they don't fit these with plugs. We fitted a 32 amp because I thought I'll cover all scenarios just in case, because it's probably going to be quite a heavy charger, but it isn't. It's only a 16 amp charger. So I've got to fit that on there. That's got to come off, and I've got a 16 amp one to put in its place. If you go to any wholesaler, you can buy this, if you want to, you can buy it as one piece. So it's like a big square box with the isolator at the top. And if you want, you can have an RCD in it. There is an RCD on it, I'll get to that in a minute. But you buy it as like the switch at the top, and then this is at the bottom. The only downside to those, depending on what brand you buy, is that sometimes you can't replace this. Because this is an industrial setting, the likelihood of this being damaged, I would say, is, you know, average to above average. It's going to get a lot of use and abuse in the place where we're working. So this is why I do them separately, because these are just click click and it's super fast to change them. These are exactly the same, that's just a 32, this is a 16. But essentially you've only got 3 parts to these. You've got the front cover, which lifts off like that, and then you've got that piece and the back plate, so that's it. And then on the very back you've basically got L1, L2, L3, neutral and earth. For anybody who hasn't worked on one of these before, you just have the socket like that, and that's essentially what you're left with. And then you just wire it in the back into the correct configuration and you're off. So they're pretty simple, but I prefer having a setup like this where it's separate because I just think they're easy to work on. Just to be on the safe side, that isolator does say it's off, but it would be my luck that that's a broken isolator, and as soon as I take this off, it'll go fizzle pop. Yeah, we put an RCD, I'll show you around there quickly, but just before we go. But we put, I put an RCD just next to the fuse board in there. Technically, I mean, depends how you want to do this. You could, if you were to hardwire that straight in there, you could argue it doesn't need an RCD, but because this is a socket, although it's not a conventional plug-in socket, I mean, it is a plug-in socket, it's just a commando socket, but it is still a socket, so it needs an RCD. But while I was talking to James actually in his previous company, this was how they got around it. Because the RCDs were so expensive, 3-phase RCDs are expensive. So they ditched away with that. They just put a stuffing gland on that, hardwire that into there, and that way they can get around the whole RCD cost issue. I'd just rather have an RCD, you know, it's just, the client pays the bill anyway, so it's, you know, it just makes sense to do it. I was hoping to fit this onto this backing plate, but they're both ABB, but that's a 32 amp and that's a 16 amp, and they're not quite the same configuration. Joe fitted this, and I must admit he did a very thorough job.
2 hours later.
What I wanted to do, I wanted to try, and in the terminals in there, crimp those flexes, so you just have a nice crimp going in. The crimp fits in that state, but as soon as you crimp it and it turns it square, it won't fit in. So I've just had to put the strands in and tighten it up the way you would sort of traditionally do, but I would have liked to have crimped it, but you can't. So the inside is pretty much exactly the same. Same formation as that, it's just on a plug. Very, very important step. Put the sleeve on first. It's the same as when you do armoured cable terminating and you leave the shroud off. I've been there many times. You think you'd learn after like the 10th time, but you don't. You just never learn. I had a job today in Fulham which I was supposed to finish. I couldn't finish it because I had to come here to do this. Then we've got that job at that charity which still isn't finished, which we've got to finish, but I'm not in a major rush to finish that because at the end of the day, when I made that price with them, I told them, look, we're not making a penny on this, so you know, we just do this when we've got time to do it. And the deal was that we could work nights there, and then once you've got the job, suddenly you can't work nights because you need a pass and you have to be escorted around everywhere. You know, you need to hold your hand up if you want to use the toilet and all that shit. So yeah, things have changed, and it's been a trying week. Yeah, that was what I wanted to do. I love this. I think it's such a nice, neat, clean finish. Maybe that's my anally retentive side coming out in me though. For anybody wondering why I leave the earth longer, the theory behind it is that if this does get pulled out for whatever reason, if somebody drives over this and yanks it out, if they pull out one of the live conductors, the earth will still be connected because it's still got a little bit of length on it. Don't have to, it's just one of those funny quirks of mine, I guess. I like to do it. I've never seen a scenario where it's actually benefited, but it's just more of a peace of mind thing. Actually, I shouldn't say that, because when you think of plug tops, you often see plug tops where the cable is pulled out and someone's left the earth a smidge longer. You do see it, and that's it. You just tighten it up, click it, and that's it. I do like those Persevia. Amazon, 20 quid, they're really good. All right, this is the intake room. Now, you can't see very much because we're literally using an iPhone torch because the bulb's gone in here. But yeah, this is one of the things you come across when you're doing industrial stuff. Like, a lot of the boards and stuff are so old and antiquated, trying to get spares for them. You know that shelf in the warehouse of all the spares I've got? This is the reason. Now, I didn't actually have any spares of these because these are so old. I actually don't even know these are, what is it, Crabtree? Yeah, Crabtree. These are the really old BS3871 Crabtree breakers. But luckily there was a 3-phase 20 here already, so I've just used that one. But if that wasn't there, the only way you could have got around this is you'd have had to put in a new sub board and do it that way. There was just no other way to do it. The RCD is just there, just comes out the board straight into a 3-phase RCD, 40 amp, and that just goes down to forklift outside. But you should be able to plug that in now and it should work. that's plugged in and charging. I was just talking with a fella here in the warehouse. This doesn't seem like the safest method of hooking up a forklift charger. You basically lift the seat up, and this is what you've got here, just a big bank of batteries. But it's all open to touch, and then you just unplug it from that connector and plug that in. Why? Can you imagine if you dropped an iron rod on that or something accidentally, or any one of these, anything? I don't get that. Surely it would have made more sense to have, like on an EV car, you just have a socket which you just plug into, and you haven't got to do any of this faffing around. If you know the reason, put it below, because I don't understand that. But that's charging, now it's all done. So we're going to head back to that charity, the place we were at yesterday. So give me 5, we'll drive back down there and I'll see you in a bit. Alloys for the truck have arrived. I've gone for 16s instead of 18s because there's actually a couple of reasons why. I don't know how many people know this. As a rule of thumb, I can already feel Sarah getting her phone out and WhatsApping me saying, what the fuck have you gone and bought now? I actually bought these, Sarah, on my own personal card, okay? So it's not a business expense. With alloys, generally, as a rule of thumb, the bigger they get, the less weight they can carry, the less downwards force you can apply on them. It's not 100% true, but as a rule of thumb, bigger the alloy, the less weight they can carry, which is why I've gone for 16s. You can get 18-inch alloys. They've got to be rated to 1,200 kilos a wheel, which is, you can get it, but it's rare. You've really got to look around. These were rated to 1.5 tons, so perfect, which is why I went for 16s. And also 18s on that truck. Sometimes you see pickup trucks and they've got like 22-inch rims and it just looks weird. It doesn't fit with the vehicle. This will fit with that vehicle and it will look nice, but 18s I just don't think would. And also climbing curbstones with 18-inch alloys is just, it's not meant to be. And also the other thing is tyres. Even if you find a set of alloys, 18-inch alloys that are load rated to 1.2 tons, I think it is, which that it needs it on that. You couldn't just go into a tyre shop and they'll have them on the shelf, which again, that was why I went with 16s. So I'm very tempted to go and fit these today, but if I don't go down to that charity, I think Sarah's going to have my bollocks in a sling. So, right, we are back at this little charity. I say charity, it's a bloody big place actually. You haven't actually seen any of this. This is all the data cabling, which, all this stuff here under the floor. In fact, 2 seconds, let me mark this up and then I'll explain. Hang on.
12 seconds later.
Right, as I was saying, so basically, up here in this riser, there used to be a server rack. From what I gather, I've never seen it because the building management won't let us up there for various complicated reasons. These cables all went up this tray, and that's the other end. I've just basically numbered them all up here and on the end here, just in case if we need to reconnect them later, we'll know which is which to reconnect them. But those, we're just going to leave there. We're just going to tie them up out of the way because they go up to an old rack. Basically what's happening is there's a rack going in here. So we're just going to take these, run them back under the floor, and reroute them to that rack. It would have been much easier if we had access to the old rack because you could just take the RJ45s out, click, click, 2 minutes, you could find out which is which. Unfortunately, we haven't got access to it, so we're gonna have to do it the old-fashioned way. Cut them all, pull them all back, and then we're just gonna use a trace tool, which is in that room I'll show you in a minute, and just work out which one's which, and then just do a lot of RJ45 connections. So we're gonna pull this all back now, so you can you can watch us do that actually. Right, a couple of hours later, James has now come back from his job, so he's terminated one of these RJ45 connectors to do a bit of fault finding. Because what's happened is, as you've just seen, we've dragged all these cables back under the floor. Apparently there's a rack going here and another company are going to be doing the fit out for that. All we've got to do is get the cables up to here and then label them all. So all of these are the cables which we pulled out from that riser back there. But I terminated one of those. We put an RJ45 jack on one of those cables and we traced it back to here. Plugged it in with one of these little testers. These are really good, but they're super cheap. You can buy these for like 15, 20 quid. They're just a brilliant bit of kit to keep in your tool bag. Plugged it in, no lights coming up at all. So I'm like, right, okay. So we pulled out the big guns. You've seen this in previous content. I haven't showed you it in a lot of detail, but for data and stuff, it is really good. So what's actually ended up happening, these here, they've got floor sockets, these ones here, right? We're not touching any of this. All we've got to do is just basically trace back what's what, and just we'll get a bit of label it. We'll get our labeling machine, label each one up individually. Once we've done that, that's our job done. We've just got to do that for the data guys, and that's as far as we go. But I thought we'll just test. I've basically been doing it with one of these cable tone tracing tools. Plugged it in with this machine, and basically what's happened is these jacks here, whoever's wired these originally, they've wired them back to front for some reason. I don't know why, whether it was just a genuine mistake or I'm not sure. I've never come across that before. So essentially what's happened is they've wired it backwards. So 1 is 8, 2 is 7. So we're just trying this principle now. James is over there now, terminating backwards an RJ45 connector, and we're just going to see if that should fix it. Not that we haven't got to sort this bit out. That's the data, guys. All we've got to do is label these up. But I'm not sure why that's been done. I don't really understand the logic of. I mean, in theory, it doesn't matter what you could put the colours any which way in an RJ45 as long as you copy it over there. I mean, you shouldn't. But the theory is it shouldn't make any difference. So we're just going to try it now, and we'll be back in a sec. Yeah, so the theory is true. James has just taken an RJ45 and reversed it, so it's not actually even a recognised layout. But we've reversed it, and yeah, it's absolutely fine now. That works. That works like a treat. So I don't know why I don't understand that. I've actually never come across that before. That's the first time I've seen that, but I'm guessing these jacks, I don't know, they've wired them back to front for some reason. I don't know. Strange. Yeah, good luck to the guys doing the server rack here. Right, quite a good little tool. If you've never done, I mean, I'm not hugely proficient in. I try to avoid like large data projects. I don't feel comfortable with it. But if you've never used one, a cable tracing tool is really, really good. So on this, I mean, these were bought as a kit, so you bought it together. But just go to your cable tracer, select cable, actually, I've just selected the wrong one. Go to cable tracer, there we go. And you basically just plug your cable in, and that will just sit there waiting now. Then take your tracing tool, and it should be one of these. It's kind of like a magic wand for, electrics. Oh, okay, one of these. That one there. So that's the one. Yeah. So if you've got there's 60 odd cables here, so that's a super fast way. The only thing you've got to be careful of is it's the same as using a chicken stick on electrics, just using a volt stick. It's not 100% guaranteed, but it is, it's good enough to give you a gauge. But if you were in some really high value room and it was really critical, you had to get the right cable, I'd probably take your time and use a better tool. If you're doing something quick like this, those are really good. So I'd really recommend those. A wire tracer, yeah, there you go, something like that. You can get them on Amazon, eBay, they're pretty cheap. I think you can get these for 30 quid. Oh, it's all right, cameraman can't zoom, but it's all right, I'll leave a link here. I'll leave the details for it, but they're very good. Right, it's about 7, half 6, 7, somewhere around there. I'll show you what we've done over here. We've got 5 cables we can't account for, so whether they've just been cut and left under the floor, we don't know. So I'll come back to those tomorrow because it's 7 o'clock and I'm getting a bit fuzzy. So this is what we've done. God, I'm getting old. They've all got their little flags on, stripped all the ends ready for the data guys when they put their server racks in. And that's literally it. So I've left plenty of slack because they can always push the slack underneath the false floor. So we can always just loop it under the floor. So what I might do is I'll just get a Bosch hole saw, cut out. I might actually just get a jigsaw. I was going to cut a hole out, but then that means you can't take the tile away. So actually, yeah, maybe I'll just get a jigsaw, neatly cut out the back of the tile, and those can all just rise out the back of the tile, and the tile will just go over like that neatly. But that is for tomorrow. It's been a very testing day. I'm done, so I will catch up with you in the morning.
Day 3.
I was just thinking, sitting here, putting all these tags on all these cables. I said at the beginning of the video, or some point during the course of this video, we were looking for somebody else to come into the office to give Sarah and V a hand. And it got me thinking, there's a Selco just over there, right? It's a huge Selco. And I was in there the other day, and I got to the checkout. Did I tell you about this? Yeah, and I got to the checkout, and there was a girl behind the counter, Polish girl. Not that her nationality makes any difference, but she was a Polish girl. But she had a nice persona about her, and I did wonder, she's got no VAT experience, no QuickBooks experience, but, I'll pay more than they will, because I actually Googled it out of curiosity, and they're on, it's 18 grand a year. I mean, it's not a great wage. And I thought, well, if you put her in the office, say 25 grand, she'll jump at the job. And all right, she hasn't got any VAT experience, she's got no QuickBooks experience, but you're helping someone out, because she's not doing that job because she wants to. That's not some lifetime ambition to work in Selco or somewhere, It's a job that you get until something better comes along. And I did think, is it better to take a risk and do that Because the problem is, you take somebody on who's got some accounting experience or something, and there's every chance that if you pay for them to finish their qualifications, they'll get the qualifications and bugger off somewhere else. And it's so annoying. I hate it when people do it. You know, when they get what they want and then they just leave because they want to go and do something else. And I just thought, if you take on somebody like that, you're helping them off the bottom of the pile. You're giving them a bit of an encouragement to try and do something more, and it'll encourage them to stay. What's your leave it below. I know it sounds a bit sort of Richard Gere, and I know it sounds a bit like that, but it is. You're helping somebody. I do love this thing of helping people. You know, just to do something for somebody, just to help. You know. But leave it below. I don't know whether it's a bit of a mad thought or whether there is some substance to that plan. Leave it below. It's very slim up here, but I'm just trying to show you what's above the ceiling up here. This conduit here, this is what I was talking about a little earlier. So this is the switch wire conduit, this one here, for the normal lighting. So these clicks, it's just an old-fashioned click connector, basically. So that screws back, that screws, says Tom doing it effortlessly on cam. I try not to touch anything else up here because it actually looks pretty old and knackered. But that's the switch line conduit. And then over there, I don't know if you can make it out, there's that, you see that other click connector over there with nothing bolted into it? I can't actually point to it, but the camera guy's zooming in on it. But basically that one there is the 12 volt DC emergency backup pipe. So you could buy a load of 12 volt fittings and you could power it off those, but I'd rather not interfere with the existing system. I'd rather just put my own fresh mini system in here, if that makes any sense. But I thought I'd show you up here because it's quite interesting actually. It's quite neat what they've done up here. There's no real. Sometimes you go into false ceilings and it's just 1,000 wires have been strewn across the ceiling, but it's pretty good here. There's not really anything to write home about. Anyway, let me chuck this light fitting in the ceiling. I'm just going to show you quickly in a bit more detail about the ceiling. You know how I was talking about false ceilings? We have the like polystyrene tile, not polystyrene, but those smeggy tiles, and you just drop them in and they hold in. This works the other way. You push it in and basically the force of pushing this in holds the rest of the ceiling up. Like this one, we were taking this putting this light fitting in, and it caused this to drop out. And there's just no, like, that's it. But like, that's really disconcerting. If you're working down, like Betty Crocker's down there typing an email or a memo or something, and suddenly half the ceiling collapses on her and snaps her neck. But it is like, you just, literally just a tap, and this all just comes apart. Like, on cam, that's now in, I've done my bit. But I just thought I'd show you that because that's, I don't know, I find that quite disconcerting really. Right, we are forging ahead here. So what we've done, I've just taken one of these fittings out the ceiling. The client here wants to run some access points. So, because it's quite a big open room, they want one access point here. To be honest, I thought one access point in the middle of the room would have been enough for everybody because they're not going to be tons of people in here, but they want to have a pair of them. So I was like, okay, whatever, I'm not arguing. So they want one there and one over there. So it gives you a relatively even spread of Wi-Fi across the room. But I still think one in the middle would have been ample, but whatever. One there, one over there. And then we've got to fit from the server rack. We just got to run a cable up where this old CCTV cam is. We just got to leave a cable hanging down here. I'll just drill it through and we'll just leave it coiled up. And there's going to be another CCTV camera going there. They may well utilise the old one, but I'm going to leave a cable in anyway, and 2 more fittings in this hallway. We've got to change over. I've taken the fittings out, but I've got to put 2 new ones in, which I'll do in a minute. And then we've got the pump truck, and we've got to load all these old reflectors onto the truck, and the rag and bone man can take it away. It's just shit. What's worse is like someone's boss turned around and said, yes, put this to market. You literally, it's like pressure that holds it in. God help anybody who's under a desk here. Can you imagine, honestly? Betty's sending a memo telling everybody they're all about to get pay rise, and she gets taken out by a ceiling tile. We've got this big bertha to go up now. This beautiful piece of architecture. Boss, I've had an idea. Why don't we create a ceiling tile which could fall out the ceiling at any moment? Think of how fast work will get done. James had a bad week last week. This week's my week. Honestly, yesterday I was on a hair trigger. It wouldn't have taken much to send me over the edge. Right, everybody, we're at the end of the day. It's just coming up to 7. I've lost enthusiasm, and I think James has as well. So we're going to call it a day. But we are more or less done. Lights are all in now. The lights have been off for the last sort of 2 hours. We just turned them back on. It's amazing how bright they are. You have to acclimatise to it. But they're all in. Access points are in. So James has very kindly stuck an RJ45 connector on those because they're having one access point there and another one just over there where that green cable's sticking out the ceiling. Again, I'd have thought one would have been enough, but they wanted 2. CCTV up there. And then these are all the access points and CCTV here, because the server rack's going somewhere here. One more access point there, and then James is doing the last RJ45 connector over there. Yeah, we've got 2 fittings out in the hallway here, to one there and one there to fit, but that's tomorrow morning's job, and then we've got to clear up all these reflectors and everything. We've got the pump truck here now, so we've got to get a pallet, take them all away tomorrow. Any of you know? No, I can't answer what name that porn star is. We just did an Instagram live. One of the questions was it, who was your favourite porn star? I can't remember her name. Obviously, I mean, I don't watch it. My mate was on the sofa. He was watching it. But I can't remember her name now. Fuck, it annoys me. Brunette girl, dark hair. What's her name? I told my mate, don't watch it because your eyes will go square. Now, this is living, I gotta be honest. I was here the other night in the unit, and after everybody had gone, I was looking at this swing lift, and I was like, I've got to be able to give this an extra use. And this hammock was like 18 quid, but isn't it perfect? Like on the side of the road, yeah, summer's day, ice lolly, having your lunch. It's so comfy. Well, this is probably a good time to end the video, so we're going to end it here. So thank you very much for watching. All the links are coming up now. Subscribe, that's the most important one, like, and we'll see you in a couple of days' time.